connect with community. We have Commissioner Scott Dunn here today. Just to let you guys know, before we get started with our interview, we do have our kitchen program starting November 4th, so be on the lookout for that. Still need a couple kids for that. While we're here, we'll speak with him about Fayette County and his relation to that. So, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on.
Uh-huh.
Thanks for coming. So, just so you know, everybody that comes on to the podcast, they have a mystery question.
Oh, is that first or last?
It's first.
Okay.
First.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, so how would your friends or people close to you describe you?
Wow. So I think there's an intensity there, a work ethic. I am told by people close to me hey, it's time to take a break, and I say, I can sleep when I'm dead, and we'll go with that. And so every now and then my body tells me that it is time to take a break and you're going to slow down. But other than that, I go full speed all the time, as much as I can, and so I think that's how I would be described. And the other thing is, I have a loyalty and a even outside of my family and friends, but to my community, growing up in Uniontown and having my kids grow up in Dunbar, there's always been a commitment to the community where I want to make sure that my kids. I grew up in a great neighborhood in Uniontown, and I've always wanted my kids to have that, and I want all the kids in Fayette County to have that. So that's kind of a driving force. So.
Well, that's nice to hear. I was going to ask you that. Did you grow up in Fayette County?
Yeah. So I grew up in Uniontown, and my dad was a truck driver, and my mom was a housemaker, and a homemaker, and we weren't rich by any stretch of the imagination. We were in the we were worker bees, and we knew it,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was fun. I have very fond memories of growing up in Uniontown, sled riding and playing football, and back in those days, an empty lot. The neighbor didn't chase you off an empty lot. You got to. That's where you played ball, and
Yeah.
so there was, anytime there was an empty lot, there was always a ball game going on or something like that. And I'm old enough now, and you're not allowed to ask how old I am, but I'm old enough to remember, going out, and when the street light came on, it was time to go home. And so your parents knew that you were within a block anyway, and they you could hear mom yelling if you had kids. So
Right.
but yeah, I recognize that times aren't that simple anymore, but I have very fond memories of growing up in Uniontown, and that's again the thing that kind of drives you is, as a politician, is trying to make Fayette County better again, make it come back to those times where Fayette County is a great place to raise a family and things like that.
So do you travel a lot, or are you a homebody?
I love to travel, and by no means a world traveler, but when we do travel, we try to get off the beaten path a little bit and try to experience something that you would never experience in Fayette County. I just was telling this story today. Our last trip, my daughter now lives in Florida. On our last trip, we stopped by Savannah on the way home. I don't want to eat at McDonald's in Savannah. I want to eat something in Savannah that I'm never going to get to eat here.
Exactly.
And I want to stay somewhere. I don't want to stay at the Holiday Inn Express. I want to stay somewhere, cool and unique to that area, and wherever that area is, But yeah, I love to travel. I love to see how other areas handle things like urban development, and so I've actually get some ideas from the travel and try to bring those back to Fayette County.
So speaking on urban development, how long have you been Fayette County Commissioner?
I have been the Fayette County Commissioner for less than 3 years, and I was elected in 2019. And I became Commissioner 2 weeks after the election because the person who I was replacing as Commissioner resigned the day after Election Day. And so I was appointed to fill her term to the end of the year. I shouldn't have been a commissioner until 2020, but I actually, in November 2019, I became commissioner. So I had a little bit of a head start. And then so this is my first term.
So how did you get into this field?
Interestingly enough, it's to help my community, and so in 2011 I became a councilman for the borough of Dunbar. And again, going back to, how would you describe yourself? When I got onto their council, they said, well, you can do as little work as you want. You really don't have to put a lot into this. And I was like, yeah, that's not who I am.
Right.
So we started doing some things, and I really kind of developed a commitment to my little community in Dunbar. And what I started noticing was that Fayette County and Dunbar have a lot in common. And I always say Dunbar is a little microcosm of Fayette County. We have places in Dunbar where there are brand new homes, really, really nice houses, some of the nicest houses in Fayette County. And we have areas of abject poverty. And we have people that struggle with addiction. We have people who, struggle with joblessness and all of the social ills that manifest themselves at the county level. We were kind of dealing with at the Dunbar level. And so I kind of sat back one day and I said, what would happen? And you got to remember, as a borough councilman in Dunbar, I'm only doing it for 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week. I'm not putting a lot of time into it.
All right.
So I started thinking, what would happen if I used the word unleashed, if I unleashed myself full time, kind of on Fayette County, would I be able to make the impact that I was making in Dunbar? Would I be able to, to make that county-wide? And so that was kind of where that started.
Did how you grew up make you want to help people? Did that shape what you're doing?
So the helping people came more actually, I would say, after I moved to Dunbar. I wasn't into the political world or anything like that prior to coming to Dunbar. As a matter of fact, I tell people, if you'd have told me 5 years ago that, hey, you're going to be the commissioner of Fayette County, I would have laughed at you, because I didn't see any of this. But what I was doing in Dunbar, I was coaching Little League Baseball, I was coaching basketball, coaching softball, helping out with the football team, helping out, so I really saw, and when you were doing that, you're helping those kids who, may not have had a father, or may not have been, they were being raised in a single family, and you started taking on all those kids, and you kind of, took ownership a little bit of wanting them to improve themselves.
All right.
So it was kind of, that's kind of where a lot of the that's my phone. I'm sorry. That's where a lot of that started to manifest itself. Yeah.
So can I ask, who's your greatest motivation? Do you have one?
My greatest motivation is my dad, and my father has passed, and his picture is above my desk, and there was no, and everybody reveres their dad, but my dad had a work ethic that you know, if and when I was punished, it was punished by let's go, we're going to work, and you know, so my father's definitely was my greatest role model. He in World War II did not have to. He had a draft deferment. He was not required to.
You can answer if you need to.
No, I don't need to.
Okay.
I need to turn it off. So in World War II, my father had a draft deferment, and it was because of where he worked, and they were producing machine gun barrels, and he was a crane operator at this place, and so his two brothers were already in World War II, so they gave him a draft deferment. He was not required to fight in World War II. So one of his friends then was killed in World War II, and he attended his funeral, and he enlisted. My dad enlisted the next day in the United States Navy. So here's a guy who didn't have to go to fight in war, and he went and fought in the war, you know. And we have his letters home, which that he wrote to his mom, which is kind of cool. And the first line of the first letter was "Send more cigars," because when you send cigars, I'm the most popular guy in the barracks. And so the picture that I have of my dad above my desk is him in the Navy, and he has a cigar about 8 inches long hanging out of his mouth. So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a great story,
Yeah.
for sure. That's nice to hear. That's honorable. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So did you always know what you wanted to do? Not saying as far as like you mentioned you jumped into being commissioner, but did you always knew again that this what you wanted to do, kind of?
No, and I think that's a little bit of a driving thing for me as well. I did not know what I wanted to do, and when I graduated high school and started thinking about going to college, I didn't know what the possibilities were, and if that makes sense. Like I didn't know, you know, could I have been a doctor? Could I have been a lawyer? Could I have been like those opportunities were never presented to me as a kid growing up in the working class area of Uniontown, you know. And so that's part of what kind of drives me now in some of the things that we're dealing with One Voice, One Community, with the down at Verticals with Will James, is making sure that our kids are inspired to become more into education, if you will. I didn't say that properly, but to desire to be more educated and to know the possibilities. And I think that's what's kind of cool right now. Actually, I was just down at Verticals this week, and to see all the things that they have, you know, the drone programs and robotics and things like that. And then, of course, that didn't exist when I went to school. But again, what you're doing is you're inspiring kids to a more positive outcome, but B, you're showing them what the possibilities are. And so I think it's kind of a cool thing that we need to do in Fayette County.
Yes, I agree. Definitely agree for sure. That's nice to hear that you you know, going down and you're hands on, and that's what I love about you know, knowing you and having a relationship with you right now. I see you at meetings. I see you're actually doing stuff. You know, you're hands on with the community.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, you can circle around this question if you want to. I was beating my head off the wall asking you this. So again, because I know the work that you do. Do you plan on venturing off and, you know, going into a different world, or do you plan on staying commissioner and running again?
So if I decide to go run for commissioner again, I have to do it next year. And as of now, I plan on running for commissioner for a second term. So I'll answer this in one way. I am excited every day I get up to go to work, and it's kind of like, you know, there are people who get up grudgingly to go to their job, but I really love being the commissioner. There's a lot to it. It's a lot of work, but I love it. And so at this point, there's not another position that I could conceivably run for that I think I would like better than being commissioner.
Okay. It's great to hear. It's great to hear. You guys heard it. So, where do you see Fayette County in the next 10 years?
So we are, there's a lot of growth going on right now in Fayette County, and what we need to do is, and I have 3 buckets. I have 3 things that I work on constantly, and the first one is infrastructure, and that this isn't the sexy part of the job, but dealing with things like water, sewage, broadband, the electric grid, and things like that, because the businesses that are coming here, they need all those things on whatever land they come to. So whether it's 5 acres or 500 acres or 5,000 acres, those businesses all need all these things. And so we have to develop properties that a business that we can then recruit a business to come to Fayette County. So that's A. But then we also need for our residents and our potential residents, everybody deserves clean water, and electricity and broadband, and we're trying to develop all of that right now. So right now we're doing a broadband study of the entirety of Fayette County to find out, A, what we need, and B, how we can do that over that next 10 years. How are we going to get broadband to every house in Fayette County? Now, I don't know if that's possible,
Right.
but that's the ideal. That's the goal. So if we end up at 85% of the homes in Fayette County, that may be a big win, because over time then you'll connect the other ones. But so broadband is a big one, because if the housing right now, there's not a lot of houses for sale, so we have to build housing. And if we're going to have people who, you can work from home now, if we're going to have people who can work from home, they have to be able to access the internet and all that. So they're going to need broadband. And again, with the way things have gone with water wells and things of that nature, we're trying to expand public water for, again, not only for economic development, but for residential development, things like that. So that's bucket A, and then I also throw business recruitment into that bucket. So I talk probably 3 or 4 calls a week from businesses that want to relocate in Fayette County. Now, a lot of them are fishing, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to reel them in a little bit too. So I mean, when we reel one in, we'll deal with that. But we're also dealing with a lot of businesses that are expanding in Fayette County or want to expand in Fayette County. So I think from that standpoint, there are going to be more jobs available in the next 10 years, and the industries are going to change a little bit. Like it won't be the standard industry that you always saw, in the past. And then what's going to come with new businesses and manufacturing and things like that is you have to have somebody who knows how to count the money. So you're going to need attorneys and accountants and all those people, those professional people. So you're going to see a mix of new jobs available in Fayette County. So that's bucket A that I see. Bucket B is kind of the fun bucket, and that's tourism. And I continue to try to develop different and new tourism assets in Fayette County. And we're trying to complete the Sheepskin Trail, which we're running from Connellsville to all the way through the county to Point Marion. We're going to try to develop new trails off of those little spurs here and there, and at the same time we'll try to add some walking trails in different areas of the county. We want the whole county to benefit from that, and not only will we benefit because people will want to come here to ride those trails and be tourists in Fayette County, but then that improves our quality of life in Fayette County. So you're going to want to live here because you're going to live next to a walking trail or next to a bike trail or a park or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's great to know.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then the third bucket is and I tell people, it's nice to be a politician. It's nice to know, these people over here that have lots of money and all that. But at the same time, I have to help people who don't have
Right.
lots of money. And you have to recognize, you put the accent on what's positive in your county as you're trying to sell and promote your county. But at the same time, you can't just overlook the negatives of your county, and you have to improve your negatives. And so, we have a crime problem, we have a blight problem, we have unemployment, addiction, mental health, on and on and on, poverty. And so you have to develop a plan to take care of that, because if we can boost ourselves and pull ourselves up from our bootstraps, then these businesses over here are going to have more employees. You're going to have a whole new group of people who rather than living in a rental, now own their own home and start to build wealth. And so we have looked at ways of making sure that we are, helping everybody in that. And so one of the things that we noticed was that there's a poverty rate in Fayette County, and we have the second highest poverty rate in the state of Pennsylvania. Only Philadelphia is worse.
Right.
But what we noticed in that poverty rate was which poverty is about 17% of the residents of Fayette County live under the poverty rate. If you did not graduate high school, then that poverty rate increased to about 35%. Conversely, if you went to college or you graduated college or went to some sort of trade training, it's about 3.5%. So you could see the difference. That's the one statistic that kind of galvanizes this whole third bucket, and that is if we can boost training, if we can boost college and things like that. So we're very close to making a major announcement in that area, and I'm really excited because I've worked for over 2 years to make something happen here, and it's that close, Yeah. So, but yeah, we're excited because I think once you have more educational opportunities in Fayette County, then that's where programs like One Voice, One Community is going to play a big role. That's where Will James is going to play a big role, because we need to then get into the schools, and this is Washington D.C. word, navigate our children toward more positive outcomes through education. So I think I'm trying to hit every one of these buckets, and it's a lot of work, but I won't stop.
That's inspiring to hear. It's like a formula, you know what I mean? You're like literally in there trying to figure out every X and O there is. Like, wow.
Right.
That's great.
And then what I do is every now and then I have a working sheet, and it's like, okay, education, boom, 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 mental health, boom, boom, like that. You're going to hear some great things regarding juvenile mental health here in the near future. You're going to hear good things about training and education in the near future. We've already boosted and increased the number of detox beds for people who are living in addiction, halfway houses, and things like that. And we're doing everything that we can to help everybody in Fayette County.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
So, speaking on mental health, question I like to ask everybody: do you practice taking care of your mental health? So since you're always helping people and you're in a position, that is, do you take care of your mental health?
So, I have a very close family connection to somebody who needs the mental health services that are going to be added in Fayette County.
Wow.
And so we're very cognizant of, in my family, the whole mental health process and how fragile people can be. Not necessarily me from a parent standpoint, because or a politician standpoint, but I always say I'll be okay. I'll be all right, and I'm really pushing, and I have pushed for a couple of years to make the changes that hopefully are going to come down. And we just got some grant funding for one of the projects, and so we're very excited. And it's not just going to be for Fayette County; it's going to be for the entire region of southwestern Pennsylvania. So that's been my goal as commissioner, is that the mental health beds or places that people could get mental health help in the state of Pennsylvania, they have been taken away over the last 20 or 25 years, and it's budgetarily, and then and it's through nobody's fault of that's just what happened,
Right.
And then COVID exacerbates all that, and COVID makes everything, made it all worse, and now we're sitting back with, we really needed those beds after all, and so it's a building back of the what we have lost over those years, because right now, if you are a child that needs juvenile mental health services and you need a bed, you might wait 72 hours before you need the bed. A lot can happen in 72 hours, right?
Definitely.
And if you're a female juvenile, that 72 hours may be 6 months or 3 months. Like that's how many beds there aren't in Fayette County, or in the state of Pennsylvania. So, and that's the other thing I do want to say is, when we talk about the things that are negative, a lot of those aren't just solely in Fayette County. We're experiencing an epidemic of overdoses right now, and it's just the way it is with fentanyl coming across the border the way it is. They're making it look like Smarties, and people are dying, but we've had more people die this year already than died last year, and so it's actually it's a horrible thing that's going on. Our EMS are becoming affected because they're showing up, and people are dying in their arms, so their mental health is becoming affected, and that's one of the things we're trying to put together a little help for those, for first responders who have to deal with that. But that's not specific to Fayette County. That's every other county around us. That's just something that's everywhere. But we're being impacted by that as well.
Okay. Well, that was definitely all the questions I have for you today, for sure.
Nothing about music. You weren't going to go to music with me, huh?
What type of music do you listen to?
So now that you ask, I grew up in a very weird time where I used to go out and play Johnny Cash for my grandmother every Sunday.
Wow.
But we grew up in the 70s, and it was singer-songwriters and rock and roll, and Casey and the Sunshine Band playing something a little funky, so you had a little bit of everything. But right now so my son, I have a son at 16, and he picked up one of my old guitars and he started playing it, so we have been playing guitar almost every night. So we are country music fans now. So we've changed to we've gone the full circle. But every now and then we play rock songs. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know you dabbled in music.
Yeah. If you have a guitar here, I'll start playing right now.
Yeah, it'd be great for sure to have you on there one day.
Oh, I don't know about that.
But that definitely. So my buddy actually is throwing together a music show for Fayette County. He's hoping to do by December, so just to look out for that.
Okay.
Have a couple different type of genres and bands and stuff in there for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that was what was weird. Again, I go back to I loved growing up in Uniontown and Fayette County. You know, it was always something. There was always a different show, like the State Theater. I mean, Johnny Cash played the State Theater. I think Waylon or Willie, or one of them, played the State Theater. At the same time, like Peaches and Herb, or so there were like these funk bands that would come in and they would play the State Theater, and it was always, you know, there was always stuff going on downtown.
Okay.
But yeah, where are you going to do it, at the Porter?
I think he said he wanted to do it in the auditorium in the community center.
Yeah, they call it the Porter Theater.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta get a little bit more familiar with the music
Yeah,
scene.
see?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I do appreciate your time again. Just want to thank you for everything you're doing in the community. Thanks for coming down. And
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come talk, and again, you're doing good things, and this is an all hands on deck situation, and there, you know, I keep telling people, you know, there's not like a single thing that you can do to say, hey, well, if we do this one thing, everything else will be okay. Like we have to hit it on all cylinders. We have to be, you know, we have to look out for each other. But then, you know, we have to understand that we can't just do one thing. We got to do it all. That's where we're at.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll keep that in mind.
All
For
right,
sure.
man.